have one particular teenager that I meet with right now. She has been struggling with depression, and it's been really amazing to work with her because as we've gotten to answering my favorite question for those who are experiencing depression, she has just blossomed like a beautiful flower. She has absolutely come to life, and we've seen such a change in her demeanor and her mood. And so today I want to share with you my big question for those who are experiencing depression. And I believe that you're going to get to the other side into hope. Hi there, I'm Dawn. I'm a licensed therapist and a homeschooling mom, and most of all, a Jesus lover. If we haven't met before, I'm married to my husband for 15 years, and I have 3 beautiful children, all between the ages of 10 and 13. So welcome today. I am going to be breaking down my favorite question for those who are experiencing depression. And I do want to say that this is for those who have a depression diagnosis and also those who are just having a depressive season. You don't need to have a diagnosis of depression to qualify for this question, but if you find yourself feeling that sense of hopelessness or that endless feeling, I remember after I gave birth to my 3rd child, I experienced a significant bout of postpartum depression, and the main thing that characterized it for me was when I felt like there was absolutely nothing to look forward to. And I also experienced a lot of isolation. And so I certainly felt like I didn't have a lot of support or emotional connection with people. And I was so exhausted that I didn't know how to address what was going on in my own heart. And that was really where this question was born. The question that I want you to consider if you are experiencing depression is, what are you angry about? The truth that I want to share with you today is that depression is actually anger turned inward. And we women, we love to internalize our pain. And so if you're a female and watching this video and you've experienced depression, I especially want you to go digging for what are you angry about? In some cases, it can be just resentment over the life that we're living. And a lot of times it has to do with having an empty bucket in terms of self-care. This young lady that I've been meeting with, who is a teenager, was feeling depression because she was so overbooked. She had so many commitments, and she would talk about her daily schedule and how she really went from one thing to the next. And here she is, a kid, and she feels like she has absolutely no time to enjoy herself or to do things that she would find joy in. And so she would wake up in the morning and just see a whole day of work ahead of her. And so if this is you, one of the things that I find a lot of women are angry or resentful about is that we aren't taking time for ourselves. And I have a whole self-care series on how to do this and how to put yourself on the list and to definitely voice your needs. But in the meantime, I'll just reference those up here. Remember that we absolutely need to prioritize the filling of our cups so that we have something to give away. And so this young lady, it was very fun to work with her because she was willing to do some things differently. And one of them was to simply carve out 5 to 10 minutes of some of her favorite activities. And so the same goes for you. Just forcing it, treating it as though it's an appointment can be so uplifting, and it can be very simple also. So once again, turn to my video on my 15 favorite ways to do self-care and you'll get some ideas. But oftentimes underlying some of our anger, especially when we're women and we are experiencing depression, is that we feel victimized by our schedule or by our lack of self-care. Other things that people have been angry about that I have worked with have been just a sense of nobody paying attention to their own needs. We have to learn how to vocalize our needs, take responsibility for them, and then communicate them. Oftentimes, I think we expect people to read our minds. And so I would encourage you to reflect on that. Is there something that you need that somebody else isn't giving you, but you haven't communicated it or vocalized it in a way that they have heard? I think we can really, again, as women, fall into this idea of mind reading. We expect people to know what we're thinking and feeling because we are people who anticipate others' needs. And so sometimes we are expecting them to do the same for us. And many people are just not wired that way. And I will say, especially men. So if you're experiencing that with your spouse, I would encourage you to communicate directly and honestly and write it down and to really spell out, if it's something that you need, like, I really need to feel loved and cherished, you need to make sure to spell out exactly what that looks like so that he can understand what you mean by that. They don't really understand unless we tell them. Oftentimes, there are things in our past that are bothering us that we have not brought Jesus into. So a lot of depression can be rooted in anger over things that have happened to us or that we've experienced in our lives. And that requires a deep dive into those areas. And so you might even ask Jesus with your journal, ask him to show you or tell you, what haven't I faced? And some people have never done their work. And so they've really kind of gotten into a lifestyle and pattern of depression because they've really had to numb themselves from the pain and the things that they haven't addressed with a wholehearted approach with God. That's a really deep work and one I would want you to do with a therapist so that you have support. But if you find yourself depressed for a period of years, there's obviously something to deal with. A lot of times people just internalize their anger, and that can definitely turn into depression. And so that's what I want you to reflect on is, what am I angry about? And once you've come up with an idea of something that you're angry about, I want you to bring that to the Lord. I want you to experience it alone with him first. He wants to do this heart work with you. One of my very favorite questions, just to get you started, is to ask Jesus, what do you want me to know about this? And you've probably heard that in some of my other videos. We want to ask Jesus his opinion. So show me what you want me to know about this feeling I'm having. And sometimes he will give you a memory. Sometimes he will give you a word, a scripture. Something will come to mind that he wants you to see. Let me tell you what my client did. So she ended up having some self-care needs. And so we worked together to develop a self-care plan for her. And then we really talked about the themes going on in her family that she was feeling angry about, where she didn't really feel like she had a voice. So there was that theme again. She was able to get in touch with was that she was experiencing a lot of chronic pain due to long-standing injuries that she experienced. Because of this constant dull pain that she's dealing with in several parts of her body, she was also angry. She was angry that she had limited mobility. She was angry that it even happened in the first place. And so we processed through the trauma of her injuries. And she also began to seek out some chiropractic care and some other people that could help her. And she began to feel better. And she and I joked together because as she put these things into practice, her whole demeanor lifted. Some color came to her cheeks. She had lightness in her face. Once she got in touch with all of these things and was learning to release her anger, and her body was getting the treatment that it needed, she said that her pain was extremely low. She couldn't believe the change in some of her injuries and all of her chronic pain. And so we talked about that, and we really had to admit that there was probably both an emotional and a physical thing going on, because she was able to release this emotion. And if you haven't read the book, The Body Keeps the Score, we know that the body stores trauma, even down to a cellular level. So I would highly recommend that book, and I'll put the link in the notes. We are really, truly holistic beings, right? We have body, mind, and spirit. And so she was storing a lot of emotion and negativity and pain within herself emotionally, and it was showing up physically as well. And so as she addressed the emotional needs and she addressed the physical needs, we were amazed to see that both her heart and her body improved. She was able to address those things that were underneath her anger and really have some success. And really, from my perspective, she came back to life. And it was just beautiful to see this happen. And so I just want to impart that to you today, that there is great hope. If you are feeling depressed, if you are feeling weighed down, if you're in a season of darkness and wilderness, I want you to seek a little bit further and see if you can identify and get in touch with those things that you might be angry about, and then bring them to Jesus. Have a coffee with Jesus where you ask him, what do you want me to know about this? And then we'll take it a little bit further in a future video series where we talk about exactly how to walk through those things with him. But in the meantime, work with him to identify what it is and to release it to his feet. He's great about problem solving. He's amazing with giving strategies. And of course, I would always encourage you to reach out to a therapist or a spiritual director too, if you feel like you need some support and some coaching in that journey. And just remember that as you release your depression and your negative thoughts, you then will be a carrier of joy. And that will be something that you impart to other people everywhere you go. And as I always remind you, we cannot give away what we ourselves do not possess. And so as you increase the joy in your own heart and in your own life, you will naturally share it with other people. And that's what Living by Heart is all about. We want to impart the goodness to other people and to really experience what God would have for us on earth as it is in heaven.